Hey guys, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools and DIY channel. So, whoever shows up tonight, appreciate you. Come on in the live. When you get a chance, and if you don't, if you catch it on the replay, that's all good too. Anyway, guys, let's dive into it. Okay, your number one investment should be you, right? Your number one investment should be you. I know a lot of us are out there. We're chasing something. We're chasing that goal, that dream, or whatever it is. But a lot of us are just doing that in our heads. We're really not investing the time, the effort, and everything it takes, because it takes a lot to get that. If you have a worthy goal, it takes a lot to get there, right? But if you don't invest in you, you're not going to get anywhere. And I want you to think of it like this. I'll use this analogy. If you jump in a car and you say, I want to drive 500 miles from here, from wherever you're at, and you just say, okay, just sit there and expect the car to just start moving on its own. That's kind of ridiculous, right? What if you don't put gas in the car? What if you don't put fuel in that vehicle to get you from point A to point B? Well, nothing's going to happen either. And it's the same with life. If you don't invest, right, in your own self, in your own life, your life is going to go nowhere. Just like that car is not going to go anywhere. All right. Now, there's certain factors that you can't control, right? Like, say, if you're investing in the markets, or you're depending on luck to get you something. Well, those are external factors, like I said, that you don't necessarily have control of. But you do have control of certain things, right? You have control of your health. You have control of your fitness. You have control of the education that you go out there and get. You have control of all the skills that you can add to your plate. These are the things that if you invest in, you will never regret, because they can't be taken away from you, right? So don't worry about the things that are out of your control. Don't just wish that your life is going to get better because you invested in the stock market, or you invested in Bitcoin, or you did some kind of crazy investment with a friend that depends on these factors. What's going to really move the needle for you if you invest in yourself? I'm talking about through education, once again, through the skills that you develop. And that's what this channel is all about. Now, I focus mainly on the trades and, tools and all that, because I believe the building blocks of any nation, any community, starts with the basic infrastructure of that community. So if you think about the Pilgrims, if you want to use those people, when they came here, wiped out the Indians and all that stuff, that's a whole nother story. But guess what? When they headed out west, or whatever land they got, however they got it, they had to build on that land, right? They had to build houses. They had to build towns and all that stuff. And then next thing you know, you have what you have today. You have cities with skyscrapers and bridges and all kinds of things, right? So it's the same with your life. You have to lay the proper foundation, just like in construction. Think about construction, or it's really a metaphor for life. When you're building a structure, you have to survey the land, and then you get the machinery to dig out the trenches, and then you lay the foundation, right? So it's the same with life. You have to look at your life as in that manner. You have to say, okay, what kind of foundation am I building for my future here? Because if you build it wrong, guess what? The structure that you built on a faulty foundation is going to fall. What's your foundation basically in life, right? Investing in yourself doesn't mean you have to read books all the time, right? Even though that can be part of it. But we got the internet, right? And all these other things today where the acquisition of knowledge is much faster than reading a book, even though, I still read every now and then. All right. So you have that. But you also have other aspects of building a foundation, which involve what kind of relationships that you cultivate. Because if you cultivate the wrong relationships, guys, just like if you put the wrong ingredient in the foundation of a building that you're building, right? Or if you don't build it properly, or if you don't mix the cement right or the concrete right, you don't let it cure long enough, later on, cracks are going to start to form. The next thing you know, all kinds of stuff start happening, right? Well, it's the same thing with when you're pouring into the foundation of your life. The ingredients that you pour in most of the time have to do with people. They're going to be the determining factor for the most part of how far you get. That's why there's that saying, you're going to go as far as the 5 people that you hang out with. Now, I know that sounds kind of extreme, but there's a lot of truth to that. If you hang around a certain type of people or person, whatever, some of those habits are going to rub off on you, or you rub off on them, or whatever. And that's just, it's actually science, by the way. I think, I don't know if this is related, but you have, like, if 2 women are on their period in the same house, like on their menstrual cycle, their menstrual cycles collide, or not collide, but they coincide. They kind of get in sync with each other. That's a marvel of nature, right? So in the same way, if you hang around a certain group of individuals, their frequency, I should say, is going to rub off on you, and you may find yourself doing things or acting a certain way because it may not be the real you, but because you hang around a certain group of people, right? Now you're acting like them. So if they're getting in trouble or they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff, a lot of it's peer pressure too. You might want to fit in, right? Because you have low self-esteem or whatever. Then you start doing things they do. But guess what? That works both ways. If you start hanging around people that who are investing in themselves, heavily investing in themselves, right? They're not even looking at a dollar figure. They're throwing their last dollar into investing in themselves. And they're moving up. You see them getting ahead. Well, if you hang around those kind of people, or you associate with those kind of people, guess what? Those habits are going to rub off on you too, right? So it's not the process there's no good or bad here, but it's choices, right? And there's consequences. That's it. So if you lay the proper foundation, right, then guess what? The structure that you build on top of that is most likely to be more durable. The life that you build on top of that is likely to be more, I don't want to use the word profitable, but why not? It'll be more profitable for you, because in a sense, life is kind of a business, right? What you put in, you want to get a better return, right? So if you're putting in, if you're investing the wrong things, or things that are not going to move the needle for you or get you ahead, then you have to really look at, hey, what am I doing here? Sit down and say, okay, go take an inventory of the last months, the last year of your life, and say, okay, it's January 1st, 2026. I made all these resolutions. It's now the 27th of January, and these last 27 days, what have I accomplished? Have I moved the needle? Have I made even the smallest, slightest change to get to where I need to go? But that brings another point up. Do you even know where you want to go? Do you even know what you want? Do you even have a mission? Do you even have a goal? Because without that, then you're just kind of floundering in the wind, right? Every gust of wind that blows, you're going with it, because you don't have your own vision. You don't have your own compass to lead you where you need, where you want to go. And I'm all about trailblazing. I'm all about, blazing your own path, in a world that's full of mediocrity. And I'm not judging anybody. And that's all perspective, by the way. But the only people that really change the world, if you want to use that term, are the people that blaze their own trails, right? The inventors, the writers, the creatives, right? And then you could add business on top of that too. But in a sense, business is a creative sport as well, because you have to stay on your toes. But at the end of the day, guys, it's all about investing in yourself, right? Because without investing in yourself, you can't help anybody else. Point blank, period, right? And I'm directing this talk more so towards my community, because, you know, being in the consumer class and understanding what that means versus being a producer, you know, and seeing where you are, you know, on that scale. And I know there's levels to it, but as a whole, if your community is a community of consumers, right, then you're in bad shape. You're in bad shape. So you know, and then you want to complain about things when you're not really making the effort, right? It's almost like, okay, I sat down, I gave up. Now I'm just gonna, I'm gonna just be an entertainer, because that's the easy route, right? There's nothing wrong with it. We all need entertainment. There's nothing wrong with that. But we need more than entertainers. We need civil engineers. We need chemists, physicists. We need developers. We need builders, right? We need officials to run cities, and we need nation builders. You can't build a nation with a bunch of entertainers as your idols, And then you have the wider communities not even giving you the respect. I was looking at some political debate, not debates, but the people that these politicians bring on to represent the African American community. Rappers, right? There's nothing wrong with being a rapper. And these entertainers, right? To represent the whole of the African American community. I mean, it's to me, it's a slap in the face. Why are you bringing somebody like that on when you have people like Claude Anderson, a nation builder, people who have the blueprint to take you from point A to point B? But no, you don't want to hear from people like that. I'm talking about us too. The vast majority of us, we're so caught up in entertainment and the BS that we're not even listening to people like that, right? Anybody know who Claude Anderson is? If you do know who Claude Anderson is, leave him one in the chat. Go look him up, right? He laid out the blueprint for the community to move from point A to point B. He understood everything that happened to us, where we are, and where we need to go and how to get there. And he's just only one person, right? And our kids, they look at all this media and they got this phone in front of their faces, so many distractions. And I guarantee you that 90% of the stuff that they're looking at is brain rot, what they call brain rot, right? Because it's not policed. We're not even policing the attention of our own community, our own kids, so they can look at things, right? Learn things that would help them to be the leaders of the nations in the future. So, I talk about just investing in yourself, but at the end of the day, it's a collective effort. Nations have to invest in themselves as well. Communities have to invest in themselves. Otherwise, you're just one person fighting a war. And I hope you guys take that seriously, because every day that you wake up, you are in a war. And you may not know it, you may not think you are, but you are in a war, seriously. Okay. And it's not just about, oh, I'm tired, I don't want to get up, so I got to fight myself to get up. And oh yeah, I won. Those are the small wins. Yes, when you're able to have the discipline to get up, go work and feed your family or run that business or whatever you're doing. But there's a socio-economic war that's going on. And yeah, I know you can turn on the news and you see all the chaos and all that, but don't get lost in the sauce. Understand where you are, right? Understand where you are in that whole chaos thing. Don't put yourself in a position where, you're not even appreciated fighting these other people's wars out there, right? Because they don't even understand the war that you live every day. They expect you to fight their wars, So part of investing in yourself It's just staying away from the mess, right? Being smart, staying away from the mess, staying indoors, growing, learning, and being strategic, right? Let's see. Yeah, so, you have to look at yourself as an asset, right? Just like a house is an asset, money in the bank could be an asset, and the point of having an asset is that it has value attached to it, right? Now, if you don't see yourself as valuable, you don't even see yourself as an asset, right? So why would you want to grow that value? Because if you in business terms, you want an asset to gain value. You don't want it to become a liability, right? So it's all about how you perceive yourself. If you don't see yourself as a valuable asset that you can cultivate and grow and be of benefit, but you can keep acquiring value till the day you pass out of here, then what's the point? Why are you here? So you just figure out, okay, what kind of value am I going to bring? What kind of skills, what kind of knowledge am I going to acquire to raise my value, right? Because you can pull a $20 bill out and say, okay, yeah, that's worth $20. What are you worth in the marketplace, by the way? Okay. I know intrinsically you can't put a price on you or me, right? Intrinsically, we are priceless as spiritual beings, right? But when we come back to earth, come back to reality, in a sense, we are, cogs in the wheel, especially in the capitalist system, right? Okay, where we are judged by the amount of value that we can bring to the marketplace. Point blank, period. That's why they got prisons, right? That's why they got, Ivy League schools and all these institutions to basically put you in a particular category with a certain value assigned to that category. People in prison, the value assigned to them is that they're in prison and they really have no value. The only value they have is how can they be manipulated or used? Why is that? Because their rights are taken away because maybe something they did or whatever. Usually, obviously, it's something they did, right? Or was accused of, right? Somebody working for Goldman Sachs or something. Their value, they're assigned a higher value in this capitalist system. So you have to decide, okay, and there's the whole spectrum in between, right? Blue collar, white collar, whatever. But nonetheless, these are real socioeconomic perceptions that people have in this whole capitalist system here. So you have to decide where you're going to fall in that. And you can't say, oh yeah, whatever, I'm just gonna do what I want. I'm gonna live off the grid and all that stuff. Yeah, you can go live off the grid, but you still got to go to the store and get stuff. Unless you can grow all the food you want. And by the way, I do advocate growing your own food. I think we should move more in that direction of being more self-sustaining and self-sufficient, especially as an African American community. Okay, and I do concentrate on the African American community because we're on the lowest rung of that socioeconomic ladder. So, for those of you out there, and this is the last time I'm going to say this, who say, oh, you always bring a race into stuff. Well, we didn't start the race thing. Okay, we didn't make that up. You guys made that up. And when I say you, what I'm talking about. So as a result, because you made that up and you made a hierarchy that we have to live under, well, I'm just calling out what is. So until you take that away and dismantle that, because it's not up to us to dismantle that. We did all the fighting we could, still fight to this day. It's up to you to dismantle that. Until you dismantle that system, then yeah, we're always going to talk about it. Point blank, period. So you have to realize where you are in this hierarchy, okay, that we live in this system, and say, okay, what kind of value? I am an asset. First, declare that to yourself. Hey, I'm an asset here. when I was put on this earth, I was put on this earth to add value. So number one, you have to assign a purpose to your birth, your very birth, right? And if you want to go back further than that, before you were born, right? You can go that and say, listen, I came here with a purpose, and that purpose has value. I'm no accident. Okay. Just like that gear in that car engine has a purpose. I have a purpose as well. I'm not just some random thing that happened. No, I'm part of this. Okay. And once you understand your value, you as an asset to this whole thing, then you can start increasing your value. You don't have to stay that little small gear. That's the beautiful thing about being a human being. You can expand, and then you can expand yourself to whatever you want to expand to. Right? You can become whatever you want. And I mean that literally, right? But you first have to understand who you are, right? And that's the core thing. I think what happened in the African American community was so much propaganda and brainwashing, even to this day. I mean, look at the media. All they pump out is negativity about us, right? And then you got kids watching this, and then they want to emulate it, and then you have the negative elements in the community perpetuating this stuff. And then now you have a world that perceives you as a certain thing. That's why I like that streamer, IShowSpeed, what he's doing. The young guy, I don't know how old he is. He looks pretty young. And he went to Africa. He went to the continent, and he's showcasing the beauty of that continent, that the West, okay, and their biased education system refused to show you in this, and I'm glad he's doing that. And he's not the only one that did that, but on the scale that he's doing it, I could really, I got to give him kudos for that, right? Because he's showcasing a continent that's very developed. Because I can go to certain parts of the United States right now and say, man, that looked like a very undeveloped areas. What are the major cities in the United States? You have Chicago, you have New York City, Miami, Los Angeles, maybe Texas, maybe some parts of the Midwest, but you have maybe a handful of metropolitan areas in the United States that everybody knows about. But most of it is just rural, right? Farmland. I used to be I still do it, but I used to be an over-the-road trucker. So I've been everywhere. I did all 48 states. And so I've seen this whole country. And I'll tell you right now, it's mostly farmland until you come into a big city. All right. So when people want to talk about the continent over there, like as if people live in huts and all this racist crap that they talk about, and these biased stuff that perpetuates the negative propaganda. Go over there and see what's actually over there. But you won't do that because it's going to make your world crumble. Right? It's going to crumble because once you see the beauty of that place, that's why I advocate people, travel and see what's there. Don't listen to people. That's one thing I learned about in life is that you never listen. You listen to them, but you don't listen to them. Know what I'm saying? You hear what they got to say, because I can't tell you how many times that somebody has given me advice, whether it was well-meaning advice or not. I can't tell you how many times I didn't listen to them. I mean, I heard them. I was polite and I said, oh, okay, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And then I went and did it, and they were wrong. And I think that happens like 80% of the time. That's why I really don't listen to people. Because they don't really have, they're not you. They don't have your grit. They don't have your spirit. They don't know what you're capable of. Most people are haters. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way, because it could be your own family, right? It's like they don't. I think the psychology behind that is that when you see somebody aspiring to more than what they are or where they are, then people around them they get scared. They say, okay, this person's leaving me. It's almost like a sense of abandonment, right? They feel abandoned on a certain level, right? They're going to leave me. Not only that, they might succeed. And I don't have the same drive and goals as they do. So if they get ahead, then I'm going to look bad. So the lowest elements of human psychology start to kick in. And that's where the crabs in a barrel, theory comes in, right? Crabs in a barrel or crabs in a bucket. They try to pull them down. Once that person tries to go up, all that. That's why you really don't tell people everything, right? And if you do tell them something, just gauge their reaction. Are they happy for you? Are they really happy for you? Or are they pretending to be happy? Do they support what you told them? Like, if you just said, oh, yeah, I want to do this. Do they support you? And you can tell by the little subtle reactions if they're real or not, if they really support you or not. They'll tell on themselves, And if you get a hint of that, then maybe that's somebody you just need to not tell things. It doesn't mean you have to exclude them from your life, but they're not going to be an asset to your growth, and that's who you want to be around. And if you don't find those people in your life, well, they're not in your immediate circle, then guess what? You have to make a change. You have to change your environment, and that could mean being alone as well for a while until you find your tribe, right? That's why a lot of people, they say, oh yeah, my tribe is on the internet. That's my followers and my, because they have people, absolute strangers, that give them more support, more encouragement than their own family or their own loved one, right? Which is a shame, but it happens. Harsh realities of life. So yeah, investment in yourself, right, should not just be about money. You pour into yourself. No. Yeah, that's part of it. You may want to go take a class and learn this new skill and all that. But it's a lot more to it than that, right? That's very important, but it's a lot more to it than that. It's about gauging your relationships, because at the end of the day, life is all about relationships, right? And another thing about life is that facts don't care about your feelings. So if you know something is not right, and your logical mind is saying, listen, yeah, your logical mind knows, but there's that part that says, oh, let's try. Facts don't care about your feelings, man. They just don't. Okay, so the more you deal with facts, the better off you'll be. Okay. The more you deal with facts, the better off you'll be. Now, I must say that when it comes to intuition, which you can say is kind of like feelings, like, hey, listen, and I got a feeling about that thing, about that opportunity, or about that person, or whether that's a person to go with or somebody to stay away from. Then you can say, and feelings in that way can override facts, right? Because sometimes facts, they look like facts, but you could be missing out on a good opportunity if you just look at the facts. So it's kind of a balancing act. I think you got to look at both sides, because something can look like it's the wrong thing and it could actually be the right thing. It could be the right thing. So you only have a certain amount of opportunities to really make strides, right? And yes, we make our own opportunities by the choices we make. I'm sitting in this chair right now talking to you because of past choices that I made. I never even wanted to go live until somebody suggested, hey man, maybe you should go live. I mean, I thought about it. I've been live on other platforms, but like just on a consistent basis, on a consistent basis, this is, like I said, I've stayed on YouTube consistently live for the past, I don't know how long, year or two, maybe a year and a half. And I consider that being a good, even though I don't get a lot of people that watch my lives, I don't come on there for a lot of people to watch because I know in the replay, people are going to look at it, people that are interested. And maybe I got to tweak my SEO a little better. I don't really do the SEO on my lives like I should. But I think it's one of the better choices that I made for the channel because it lets you see me, who I am, what I stand for. I know I'm not perfect. I got a lot of flaws that I'm gonna, me and God gonna have to deal with that, deal with those. But, I try to put my best self forward here on these lives, right? But that's all. Like I said, that's all part of investing in yourself and what you do, right? So you'll never lose with learning new skills. Educating yourself as much as you can, however that is, whether you listen to audiobooks, whether you talk to a older person on a regular basis to get advice. For some people, it's therapy, right? Some people it's therapy. And I know a lot of men actually go to therapy. You think about women. Oh yeah, women need therapy and all that. But a lot of men go to therapy. Matter of fact, a lot of these high achieving people, I'm talking about people, celebrities, high achievers, business people, they all, a lot, not all, but a lot of them actually, they have therapists to help them through those, whatever they need to work out. Okay. So whatever you need to do to invest in yourself, guys, go ahead and do it. Don't always listen to the naysayers, right? Don't be afraid because to do that, right? Because that's how you're going to make it and push forward. I'm coming out with a mastery class in the next, I would say the next couple of months. I'm going to drop it on you guys. I want you guys to support it because my whole thing is getting the community, especially the kids, man. I'm all about that. I'm all about especially in my community, these kids that are lost, that are being, got their heads in the phones all day, right? And not learning a dang thing. I want to be a football player. Oh, I'm going to Pop Warner League. It's only a small percentage, maybe 1 or 2% of those kids are going to make it to the league, whatever that is, basketball, football, whatever. We got to change that, man. We got to give them more attainable dreams, and actually, I think more valuable dreams than just somebody running the ball down the field. They need to be the governors, the mayors of their own cities, of their own towns. Okay, they need to be the police chiefs, the law enforcement arm of their own towns. Right now, you are, just turn on the news. You are under siege, right, by a foreign army. Point blank, period. I'm not just talking about ICE. I'm talking about just LAPD, NYPD. What's the other one, Miami? Or whatever, you are under siege, especially as a quote unquote minority. You're being policed by foreigners, a foreign army that can suppress you. That's what you're living under. So why not, as a nation, right? A nation builders, you want to build your own nation within the nation. You have to look at every aspect of that nation. A nation has to be able to protect itself. You have to have a military arm of your nation, of your community. You have to be able to protect the women and children, right? But guess what? You're relying on people that shoot you in the street in your back and get a day off. You're relying on that to protect you. Why? Because you haven't, we did build nations. We had so many towns and cities that are African-American owned, prospering towns and cities. that were destroyed. Bombs dropped on them. Right? So I'm not talking like we never did this, but we need to do it again, is what I'm saying. We need to do it again. We need to cut the division amongst ourselves, right? Cut that crap out. Because that's exactly what they want, right? If they conquer your mind where you look at your brother as your enemy, they already got you. The war has been won. Because now you're waging war on your brother, right? You got the women waging war on the men. I have to hang my head in shame to a degree, because I look and I see this gender war in the community. And yeah, there are valid grievances on both sides. I get it. There's valid grievances on both sides. But unless some healing is done between women and men, right? Unless the power struggle is done away with, and you start having a more harmonious community with more harmonious relationships, having standards, because the women that they prop up now as representatives of the community are nothing. So the standards their standards are so low, right? I mean, is that who you want to represent your community as? I mean, is that what in China or India, are there women being represented as this is the pinnacle of that community as far as women? But yet we elevate people that have no standards. And then you have these young women coming up with these phones who have instant access to their idols, just ingesting this stuff and wanting to be like that. And then you wonder why the community is where it is right now. And it goes with the men too. Why you're gonna have an entertainer when you got guys like Claude Anderson? I'm gonna keep saying his name because he's the only real one that I know lately that's not trying to scam anybody. Because I don't want to say any names, but you got some really good talkers out there on this internet. You got some really good speakers, but that's all they good at. Where's the proof? What have they built? It's usually the ones you don't hear about, the quiet ones, the ones out there in the struggle who trying to live a decent, trying to stay legal, right? And build within a system that wasn't even meant for them. And they're the ones building more than the loud ones on the internet, right? And yet we idolize those people because, they're on a screen, or look at all that. They got all these followers. Everybody knows their name. When the real builders out there, nobody know their name. They're the ones pulling your kid into a program and teaching them how to be a man, or teaching them how to be a respectful woman. You don't hear about those. You don't hear about them, do you? But we could complain all day about where we are in the world and why everybody hates us, and nobody likes us, nobody respects us. Man, do we even respect ourselves to some degree? Because the ones in all over YouTube and all over these platforms, and I know it's about media, it's about attention, it's about negativity. That's the name of the game. But we can't even afford to be that, man. We can't even afford to cultivate that. That's why Caliber 8 exists to shift that narrative. Understand what I'm saying? To shift that narrative. And we all should be doing our own little part to shift that narrative if we want to be in another position by the end of the year. And yes, I say, I'm not going to say in 50 years, I say by the end of the year. So, but we first have to invest in ourselves, and we have to invest our hard-earned dollars back into our community. I have products on this site that should be moving, right? I got products that I got a business. Okay, this YouTube thing is an educational space, and that's all I do on this is educate. I don't care about nothing else. I don't care about talking or gossip, none of that. I came on YouTube to educate. I didn't come on for nothing else, and let you guys know what I do and what I represent and what I have to offer. And I really should be depending on my community to be supporting me, supporting my business, supporting Caliber 8. That's what I should be depending on. But I have other communities, it seems like they're more invested in what I do than my own community. And that's the shame. Now, this knowledge is here for everybody. But at the end of the day, you guys know what I'm talking about. So invest in yourself, whatever that is. Okay? That means you might have to get rid of a lot of things in order to invest. You're going to have to move a lot of stuff out of the way so that new, fresh investment of ideas, of skills and knowledge can have room in you to thrive and take you to the next level. All right? There we go, guys. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you. Check out caliber8.com. See what I got down there. Love you guys. And I'll see you the next one.